Folks, welcome to your week. This is the Pop Culture Roundup. Listen, it is 8 a.m. over in Los Angeles, and there's only very few people that I would wake up this early for, and we have one of them today. She hasn't been on, I think, in over a year, so like time means nothing to me, as this last 4 years have proven to a lot of people. And so I was like, oh, I think I just talked to her like a couple months ago, and it turns out it was a year. She is one of the best pop culture encyclopedia people that I know. She kind of knows everything about everything, and I couldn't be more thrilled to have her back today. You know her as the deputy news editor at Us Magazine, so go to usmagazine.com. I get like 10 emails from them a day, and I look forward to every one, and it kind of keeps me up to date on even the little things that I think I know and I don't. She also hosts the Us Weekly's Bachelor podcast, Here for the Right Reasons, that will be coming back probably around July when the new season starts ramping up. But you know her, you love her, the one, the only, Sarah Hearon. Sarah, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Ryan. I can't believe it's been a year. That doesn't feel right.
It doesn't feel right at all, and that's on me. That's my bad.
Yes,
It's been a weird year, and I did see you at BravoCon, and
Right.
you go to all of these events, and I gotta say, do you still have the same love of pop culture that you've always had? Do you find it exhausting at a certain point?
Ooh, that's a good question. I definitely get Bachelor fatigue, and I kind of get excited when The Bachelor goes on a break, but I get very excited when they try something new. So I'm
So
very
you love like
into
Golden Bachelor, Golden Bachelorette.
love. I love,
Yeah.
especially, I'm very upset because the Golden Bachelor, the episodes were 60 minutes, and that was beautiful.
Yes.
They're making the Golden Bachelor at 90 minutes.
Okay. So I have to tell you, I like the Golden Bachelor for me, and we didn't fully, I would talk about it, but we didn't cover like episode to episode,
Mhm.
but it really brought me back to the Bachelor franchise as a whole, because I was like, this is exactly like, I would tear up every episode.
Mhm.
I thought it was this great thing of people that had loved and lost and then wanted to still love again. And I thought
Yep.
this was so beautiful. And I don't even care that Gary and Teresa didn't make it.
I
I
think
don't
it's
really.
better that they didn't.
Yeah, I mean, well, here's the deal. I mean, even with Vanderpump Rules or any of these shows, like you have to really make a giant leap to think this is forever.
Right.
Like even, like that any of these people, just knowing the world and how it works, is that a lot of people don't, a lot of people get divorced. And if you're going to show your romance on camera, that's already a knock against you sometimes.
Yeah, and you know what? Obviously, does it sort of take away a little bit from this bubble that everyone
Yeah.
got back into with The Bachelor? Sure. I don't necessarily watch The Bachelor for the love story. I watch it though to see a full picture. So for me to wake up that Friday morning and turn on Good Morning America and to have them at least telling me that they're breaking up, to have him file for divorce that same day, which proved to me that it was a real marriage, probably in some sort of contract to, if they get married, must be on television, probably within this amount of time. And you know what? Listen, sorry she didn't want to quit her job and leave New Jersey and he didn't want to leave his lake house. Is that something they probably should have talked about? Sure. But is it a little more exciting that we got to watch it all unfold? Kinda. Like, I'm okay with it, but
Well,
I'm
I
fine
mean,
with what we did.
Sarah, I mean, if they had 90-minute episodes, they would have been able to talk about it. They were
That's right.
rushing these conversations. Well, they even had a live marriage, right? Like they
Mhm.
got married on ABC Live.
Yep.
And I thought, wow. So it is interesting to make that big of a production and then it not kind of go through, or at least I used to think there was like some contract where you had to wait a year until
Right.
you broke up. And it was pretty quick.
It was less than 3 months. I don't think there's a contract of when you can break up. I think that's kind of like a falsehood, but I do think that when you do break up, you have to go to the powers that be at ABC and let them roll out your breakup as they see fit. So is that a Dancing with the Stars run? Is that a Good Morning America interview? Is that a joint statement because it's contentious? Is that, throwing back to like Jake and Vienna, getting then Chris Harrison, now Jesse Palmer on the line to do a breakdown? Like, I think it just depends, but they had so much success with the Golden Bachelor ratings wise. I mean, that wedding was watched by like 4 million people, which in today's time is a lot for this random, like
Yeah.
60 something, 72-year-olds getting married. They hadn't done a live wedding since like Sean and Catherine. They'd done wedding specials, but they hadn't done a live one in a while. So I think it was a win for the network and for Bachelor Nation, as they call it. And I think they're taking Paradise off. I'm turning this into a Bachelor podcast.
No, it's good because we haven't caught up with it in a while, and I think that is such a big pop culture thing before we get into everything else. But yeah, I noticed Bachelor in Paradise was no longer, because I was like, oh my God, are they going to start folding Golden Bachelor contestants into Bachelor in Paradise?
can
But I was
only
like,
wish,
good.
right?
Yeah.
They're
Would it be
taking that
amazing if
off.
Gary's there and just starts hitting on young ladies?
See, that's where it would ruin the allure of Gary. I know there was a lot of talk about like his past and if he lied. And I thought that Hollywood Reporter expose that they wrote about him was a little far fetched. I think it was more so like the network presented him as something, not like Gary lied.
Yes.
Like I think they went a little too far in the wholesome image. And then it kind of, of course, this man dated in the 6 years since his wife died. Like, find me a man who didn't. Like, I don't know. It didn't really seem that salacious to me.
I try to explain to the audience too, is that like, even with Vanderpump Rules, production is like a whole thing. Like you have to produce a show, you have to make the show, and then you have to sell the show. And these people, like, you're not selling the show. Like, it's better to have a certain storyline instead of he did sort of date here and there, but he is ready to date. Like it does. They're trying to make it seem like a magical fantasy. That's what they want. And I do think sometimes they miss the audience, and especially with Vanderpump Rules, where I think the audience can take it. I just think it's easier to sell a certain story instead of actually explaining how difficult life can be, and that like you do go through so many ups and downs in life. That's hard to sell.
Bravo has been much quicker on getting in on it, like with the audience, like breaking the fourth wall, doing things like an after show where they kind of break things down more.
Oh, it's so brilliant, the after show.
Yeah, the after show is good. People who don't watch the after show are missing things, I think.
Well, I almost wonder if like next season for a lot of these, they're going to move that to regular Bravo and not just Peacock, because I believe there's so much context, especially with the Summer House one this week. And Vanderpump Rules, of course, but it kind of like, it really opens your eyes to a lot of their actual feelings and their actual feelings day and date.
Because all of these shows are turning into shows about the show. And it's a good and bad thing. I don't think it has longevity, which is, I think, with the New Jersey of it all and the whatever, I'm sure we'll get into it. I think it's not good for longevity, but it is exciting to watch unfold. And ABC, like, literally just last year started tagging these people on Instagram, like acknowledging that these Bachelor contestants like have a platform and allowing them to post on TikTok, allowing them to do a little bit more interviews in real time. And they used to keep them very guarded. They would not really acknowledge that they existed outside of the edit they got on the show. So they were a little slow on it, but I think it's helping them, but they still have a lot more control. Whereas Bravo has given them more of a leash, and it's kind of lost it a little bit because you have people like, it's just like they're self-producing a little bit.
Oh yeah. I mean,
network.
Right now, the Valley hasn't even picked up cameras for season 2 yet, and I feel like they've filmed 3 seasons in the interim of the break because of the Jax and Brittany of it all, the Michelle and Jesse, where you're like, there is so much happening. I mean, we had the whole Jax Taylor story last weekend where he was seen with Paige Woolen, the Instagram influencer and creator of Dudes in the DMs Instagram account, and then we find out this week that Jax, of course, in classic Jax fashion of, you guys don't understand. It's not what it appears to be. Like, me, I would never do something like this. And it turns out he was at like this golf tournament, and Paige Woolen's dad, I guess, won like a round of golf with Jax. Like, that's some big prize. And the dad said, hey, my daughter is in Los Angeles. You two should meet. I think that's all well and fine, but I'm sorry. Jax Taylor in 2024, this day and age, knows that cameras will be following him and knows that this will be seen. So him like now doing this sad sap act of like, you guys don't understand the reality of this situation. BS. Like two things can be true at once.
One, I cannot believe someone won golf with Jax. I'm not over that.
The saddest prize ever.
Does Jax know how to golf?
I don't like, I'm shocked. I mean, I guess he's like a real man. So he's like, yeah, of course I know how to golf, Sarah.
Oh my God. Okay. Would love to know what kind of putter he's using these days. No, I also, with that whole thing, I was listening to Sheena's podcast because
Shenanigans on Friday.
You got to listen to Shenanigans.
Yes, Shenanigans on Friday had a lot of, but this is exactly to the point you're talking about, is it's not just the viewing experience anymore on Bravo. It is the podcast. It is the after show. It is shows like these. It is Us Weekly. All of these things now give you a 360 view, and it kind of shocks the audience sometimes because you're like, wait a sec. Wait, we didn't even know about this. We didn't even see about this. Sheena, I know we're going all over the place, folks, but this is so bad it's good. So Sheena makes the statement that we all maybe suspected, and I don't know how true or valid it is, but she says Alex Baskin, the executive producer of Vanderpump Rules, told them mid-season, her and Lala, that they don't have a show. They're going to have to wrap early potentially because they don't have enough, and really put them on the spot to create and to potentially see more of Tom Sandoval's side. And I thought, wow, first off, that makes a little sense, but wow, the fact that you're admitting this on your podcast, I'm so confused because I think you know and I know when we interview Bravo celebrities or Bachelor people, you usually have PR there, a publicist. You will usually have to take. I mean, I had a whole interview I did with Janet Elizabeth from the Valley, a whole hour interview that I couldn't release this week because PR was not there. I mean, it was just a weird situation.
Yeah.
So I do wonder, even like listening to shenanigans, how true that story was.
Oh, the podcast must be such a nightmare for these
Right?
publicists because they all have so many now.
But how are they allowed to do it? Like Jax went on and commented about the Valley and the Paige Woolen story. Like, I wonder if they're sometimes upset of like, save that for the show.
They definitely probably do get upset. And that's also why you have someone like Alex Baskin, who Bravo is doing a podcast with, because they're going to try to get in on it. The Bachelor did the same thing with like launching their own Bachelor podcast because they were like,
yeah, they have the hot mic podcast with Alex Baskin. I think
behind a paywall.
That's it. You have to, it's behind a paywall, you guys. And I think that's the thing, is that a lot of people don't know it's there because he gets all of the best people that he works with.
Right.
So, he had Tom, he had Schwartz and Sandoval. He had Lala, he had Sheena, he had Beverly Hills people. But it is interesting. I do wonder if rules have to be put in place eventually for these podcasts just to have a little air of mystery, or are we just so far past mystery at this point?
I think both. I'm sure there are rules. I'm sure when someone like Sheena, who's been with the network for a long time, is upset about her edit for the umpteenth time, they maybe give her a little bit of grace because they're not filming right now and she has given of so much of her life. And I'm sure she's been a very, good
soldier,
NBC employee, soldier.
Yeah.
Like, I think they probably work with people like that to let them make a living. And, as long as they're not going too rogue. I do think Rachel goes rogue. I didn't even mean to do that. I do think Sheena, that statement she made, I bet there's some truth to it, but I think Sheena's grasping. Obviously, I think both her and Lala saw the reaction to not only the finale, but part 3 of the reunion, as if they really had won anyone over at all. They hadn't. And that kind of like really was a tough look for them. So I think she's trying to come up with anything and rationalize. And maybe she's remembering a conversation she had with Alex Baskin where he made an offhanded comment like, we got to pick this stuff up, and then took it and ran with it. Like, the show's canceled unless I, Sheena Shea, convince Tom Sandoval and Ariana Madix to be in a room together. Like, I simply don't think he told her like 100 crew members are going to lose their job if you don't like pick up the pace. But I do think reality TV producers are good at their job. He's the showrunner of the biggest shows on the network for a reason. So did he maybe make a comment or whatever? Sure. Is she now maybe a couple months later glamorizing it into like, I had the fate of Vanderpump Rules on my back? Probably. Like, I think many things can be true.
Well, yeah, we make ourselves the hero of our own stories all the time. So
Sheena Shea is really good at that. I mean, I love her.
Well, that's it exactly. And I got to say, I know I'm biased because I've been on Shenanigans a couple of times, but I genuinely enjoy Shenanigans because she does. There's so much. I hate a grown man saying tea, but there is so much tea usually revealed. Yeah. And it is so great to hear from her perspective. I wish I could say the same for Lala's podcast, but Lala, like you can just sense the extreme anger there, and especially this season. And she's so defiant, doubling down, tripling down. I just wonder if Sheena gets a call over the weekend from Alex Baskin ever and going like, what the hell, girl? Like, Come on, you threw me under the bus. Like, I'm your producer. We are supposed to have some, layer of mystery. And I think that's, and we'll come back to Vanderpump Rules, but I did want to start with Summer House, because, talking about breaking the fourth wall and how these shows are produced and how the audience receives them. We had the finale of Summer House this week, and we find we already knew the outcome from the beginning of the season. So it was this whole mystery of how do we get to this place? And I think fairly early in the season, in fact, the first couple of episodes, we saw, yeah, man, that's not a great relationship. It does not appear to be a great relationship. And then it was interesting to watch the audience's reaction throughout the season of like, not that anybody should be team anything, but it was like
flip-flopped the audience.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Team Carl. And then it was like, well, I see a lot of what Lindsay is saying. And then in that final episode, what was your overall take watching that episode?
Okay, I might have a hot take. I'm not mad at Carl for calling the producers to pick up the cameras.
Wow, that is a hot take.
I know. I'm sorry. for a few reasons. One, don't tell me Lindsay wouldn't have done the same thing if roles were reversed. I'm sorry. They both have been on the show for 8 years. They know how it works. Two, so it's their jobs. Like, it's simply their jobs to film this. Also, if you're Lindsay, this is good for you. Like, you come off better seeing it. It's one, I think either way, like, I hate to say it. I know they don't actually owe us anything, but in theory, they owe us a complete arc of this relationship. I mean, if they didn't,
yes, in terms of the show, there was a complete beginning to end story. Even if you include their friendship, we get to see the friendship, and then we get to see the end of everything.
Right. And if we didn't see this conversation, I know, is it the nicest thing to do? No. But is it the nicest thing to do on TV to like accuse your fiance of doing drugs? No. Like, it's kind of like, what are the rules here? Like, where is the line? So I don't think it's like a crime to call the producers of the show that you know that you're on and have them come to capture a conversation. Do I think Carl is fibbing a little bit when he's saying he didn't know he was going to end it? Yes. I think he went into that conversation very much ready to end it, unless she all of a sudden, like, I mean, he can't predict the future, but yes, I think he definitely was planning to end it. I think the conversation with Kyle also, gets to that. Do I think Lindsay was choosing to maybe ignore some red flags that she's now admitted? Yes. So I think neither of them are right or wrong. I think this is their lives that they chose to do. If we didn't see that conversation, we would have spent the entire reunion talking about it and debating what was said, who said what. Now we at least got to see it. It's kind of like when The Bachelor breaks up with the person they propose to, like when you're Peter or you're Ari or you're Jason Mesnick. It does more service to the person. It's horrible to do it in front of cameras, but guess what? They're the hero. They get to go be the Bachelorette. The audience gets to, make a decision, like get to see it. I don't think it was a bad decision. I think it would have done the same thing. I'm sorry.
You make a great point, but I think that's where the audience, and this is why it's such a powerful viewing experience, because I walk away going like, dude, at the end of the day, you do have a real relationship. Yeah. The fact, like in my mind, the fact that you did have that conversation on camera and not like, I was thinking like, dude, if you really love somebody or respect them at all, you say, this is what's happening off camera and then deal with the aftermath on camera but it just shows you. Like I feel like it's hysterical that we've gotten into the year 2024 of people like Lala and saying like, we're on the front line out there. We're putting our lives out there this is what we do. Or Tom Sandoval's like, This is what we do. Have the hard conversations with the one person you don't want to have conversations with. It's like, guys, come back to reality a little bit. Yes. Like you're on a reality show. That's what the troubling thing is. Yes, the troubling thing is you're like, holy God, dude, this is a real thing. And you chose to do it on camera. And you're right. That's the one place. Like, I understand a lot of what Carl is saying. The one thing that's hard to get behind is him saying, and in the after show, he expands on this, you guys. He says, dude, if Lindsay at any moment in that conversation had said, okay, I want to work on this. I love you. Let's do this. I would have been open arms on that. And I'm like, BS, Carl.
Yeah, that's not true.
that Kyle conversation beforehand, you could just tell he's like, Kyle, say it. Say I shouldn't be with her. Say I shouldn't be with her. Yeah. Like, he's like, so you're saying he wanted people, like he had his parents say it. He had everybody in the house say it. And you guys, us audience, and like everybody in that house said, yeah, no, we're not surprised at all. Right decision. Nobody said, I mean, Gabby maybe a little bit, but nobody else was like, oh, big wrong choice. They were all like extremely smart choice. I'm glad you guys finally woke up to it. I just think that on camera thing is the thing that's still like, man, it's great reality television. So great for the audience, but it is the one moment where I'm like, man, sometimes these reality shows rot people's actual brains on how they deal with like human interaction.
Yeah, I think that's very true. I think in a couple of years, maybe looking back, are you like, was that the nicest thing I could have done? No, I think also you're so wrapped up in it. Producers who have been watching this fight, watching this relationship from the beginning, become your confidants. They're probably telling Carl, film it, give it, give the audience the full story. You owe it to them, or like you owe it to Lindsay to like complete this. I don't know, like who knows why he got to that conclusion, but I do think as a selfish audience member, it was great. And also like, I'm sorry, like I really think if the roles were reversed, the same thing would have happened. I think it's what they do. It's a reality show. I know it's their real life, but like, I wish he was owning up to the fact that he went into that conversation wanting to end it. I did read his New York Times profile. Of course, Carl has a New York Times profile. Lindsay has a Glamour magazine. She's going Ariana. He got the Times. And in it,
I said the Patreon. I said, wait, the New York Times seems to be very pro male Bravo star. They had Wes Wilson last week, Tom Sandoval, and then
Yep.
Carl, and then Glamour had that Ariana cover story last season, and now Lindsay. I was like, what's up with New York Times being very male driven Bravo star?
Well, it's also just so crazy. Like, it started with like Variety and the Hollywood Reporter starting to cover Bravo, and now it's like the New York Times and Glamour. It's like, can you, Us Magazine, have something? Like, we are the experts. We have higher SEO ranking than you on these shows. Like, let us do it, please.
Well,
like, come on.
dude, isn't it funny now? All of this now becomes in vogue in a certain way, and we've been on the front line for years and years. I mean, Us Weekly, truly, like I've told you this so many times, was like my go-to source for so many years. And it is funny that when everybody else wants in on it, and I think that's how it's great, because it's that thing you've always been a fan of, getting like public notice and attention. But sometimes you're like, you didn't even watch the show, New York Times. You don't even know what you're talking about.
I can get a little bitter, but I did think it was a good profile. And I think in that, Carl showed the most like maturity he has since. I think when he said something along the lines of, I was accusing her of like playing the victim, and looking back, I did it a little bit too. I hope he brings that energy, and he did. He totally did.
Yeah.
And I hope he brings that energy into the reunion. Because Lindsay's a hard person to go up against in a reunion, and I'm very interested to see how that's gonna go.
Sarah, I was in New York like a month or so ago, and I was like coming off of like being sick, and I got to interview her in person, and it was the day before the reunion. And I have to tell you, man, like it was like, I love Lindsay, and but you could just tell like the rigidness, the steeliness of, she was talking about having to watch all of the episodes, and she was up to the last one, and it was the day before. But you really got that sense of, I am so tired of reliving this. And I even said at the beginning, I said, hey, thank you for a great season, even though I know it's on the back of your personal pain. And I think we all sometimes forget that. But she was like, yeah, like this, like you really got the sense that like, even if we think she was completely blind, you do get the sense that she completely believed she was blindsided. That even like that this contract of being engaged means he can never walk away. So she truly was shocked.
And I think Amanda on the after show said something similar. And she said, like, there goes my relationship with Lindsay, like kind of in jest, like Lindsay's going to not like this. But and Paige was similar.
Oh my God, the Paige comments.
I know. They have been supportive of her, but also like, they're not going to be blindly team Lindsay when they were like, not that close to her, but are trying to, it's been nice to see that relationship. I know everyone keeps like reposting that picture of them hugging, being like, this should be Ariana.
I was like, guys, give it a rest.
They were really, Paige was making fun of her in the confessionals for the fake tears. Like, let's be honest, like, or at the after show. But I do think Amanda said it best in a similar way, where she was like, I do believe that Lindsay believes she was blindsided. Like she genuinely had certain blinders. It's the Kelsey Ballerini song. Were you blindsided, or were you just blind? Like maybe both. Like, I don't know. Like, I think, I do believe she thinks that. And I do think Lindsay is a great reality star who has not shied away from conflict, from putting herself out there, or like hidden anything. Like I do think that, she should get some props. She showed up. She would never not. And in that Glamour article, they asked her if she would ever consider walking away from Summer House. And she said, I would film Summer House till I was 100. And I was like, at least she's honest.
Listen, at this point, hopefully they'll get 100 seasons. I'm in. Like, I will say, just like Golden Bachelor, I thought it was a return to form for Summer House, where I thought, what a great mix of casting with the new guys. Like, everything seemed to really fall into place. And I am so excited because they are picking back up cameras for July. And I can't wait to see how Lindsay and Carl in the same house again, what that's going to look like. The tension, you can already, I already feel it in my chest. And on top of that, we have Wes Wilson and Jesse. We have both blown all of us, the Bravo audience, have blown so much smoke up their asses that there is going to be whatever goes up must come down. And I'm not ripping on either of these men because I truly enjoy and love watching them. But even in the reunion trailer, which by the way, it's only a 2-part reunion, you guys, which I'm like, dude, I could do 2 parts on just Carl and Lindsay. Like, let's keep this going, because I have so many questions myself. But Wes and Jesse, I mean, Wes in that trailer says, listen, the Bravo fan base, it's like, it's a lot of women. And, kind of like alluding to the fact of, it was too much temptation. And potentially that's why, I mean, unless there's a big surprise and Sierra and Wes are still together, which there's no flipping way. But like, that is interesting, because this dude's a late 20s dude that has the world by the balls right now in the New York Times, going around New York, doing like TikToks and like he's in LA right now doing like Arrow One food hauls. And I'm like, of course, every girl is throwing themselves at these two men.
Yeah, it's definitely feels like the Bravo audience specifically as a collective builds someone up, not to tear them down, but like as the season was going, I was like, West is definitely in for like a sophomore like downfall because of Sierra is also so beloved. And I don't think he technically, I don't know if they ever got to the point of being exclusive. I think it's gonna come off like is just more.
I hope she never slept with him. I really do.
I know that would be kind of.
I hope she stuck to her guns because I thought that actually makes a lot of sense in this day and age. If you are looking for an actual real relationship, if you are getting a bad vibe, like really, like it's okay. Like I hate to be like I'm like a counselor all of a sudden. It's okay to wait, ladies. It's okay. Like let me mansplain how to wait. You know, like
and she's been burned before. I know the Austin thing. I feel like none of us really in real time realized how much this was messing her up. But Austin Kroll really did a number on that girl.
Oh, and you can tell she still brings it up. Yeah,
yeah. So I don't know. I think hopefully West and Jesse. They're definitely know that they're getting all this hype, but they also seem like kind of smart enough to know that it might not last and to ride the wave and hopefully be tough enough to then handle when things maybe aren't going perfectly their way. They are also just like funny, seem like genuinely whatever. It's not like we're dealing with Jack Sandoval type guys.
No, they seem like they enjoy life. They seem like they have fun. They bring everybody together. Like even in the after show, it was funny watch West and Jesse when they'd be like, oh, like Wes had this great thing of like when the Summer House breakup was announced, like all of a sudden off season, everybody was posting it. And Wes says, I didn't even know this many fucking people watch Summer House.
That was so good.
Well, and also you wondered if he was like, oh shit, I got to really watch what I do on this show. Because I could be Carl one day. Also, these guys are really good at social media. And that's another thing to watch out for. Like, I think West is extremely smart in ways that and I'm not saying he's like acting like a different person. Yeah, he works for Complex, right? So he knows what he's doing. I just think they're potentially at this point, he doesn't want to, like, we all think it's great and cute for him and Sierra, but he's saying like, I don't want to nail myself down to one specific person. And I do think, you know, you watch this Carl Lindsay thing. What is the benefit of having a showmance if eventually that's not going to, especially if he has the views on relationships that he does, it wouldn't be good for him.
No, I think even Kyle and Amanda, I mean, we have watched that relationship. Dude, yikes. Like it can't be fun for them either. I think there's so much more in theirs because it's from the beginning. It's tied up in Loverboy. It's Winter House. It's this, like they can't really take it back. But I think if I was West and I was watching that relationship in the house, Carl and Lindsay in the house, and I'm now dating a very popular person on the show, I would definitely be scared. You kind of get the vibe that as they were filming it, they both were genuinely just living and being normal, being still like they're
having fun, drinking free Loverboy on the weekend, you know,
which is good. So I think hopefully they don't go into season 2 worried about that and they just let it happen. But I think they would be delusional to not think that it might not go as well the second time. Like
it would be great if they completely freeze up on camera now and they're just like
the other straight men who have on Summer House Pass, which is why they cannot cast this show.
You're so right. I mean, like the second season, it is, but finally we have these two guys that like pop immediately on screen and it almost brought these other people together. Like Kyle was like, other men to party with? Yeah. Amazing. Like we had Alex 2 seasons ago that would wake up early and make ground turkey. Yeah. We had like, you know, like it is interesting. So this reunion is going to happen and I'm curious to see the finality of Carl and Lindsay or them face to face again before we start a new season. But I thought this has been a fantastic season top to bottom. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed and looked forward to watching this more than I did Vanderpump Rules or anything in my week. I was just so heavily invested. I do think Kyle and Amanda also benefited from Carl and Lindsay's dissolution this season because if you think about it, their storyline was, like you said, it was very dark itself. Yeah. And you're right. It's because we have so many years just in real relationships. You keep score sometimes in relationships. You have all of these things. And I felt at times we were watching eventual things that will be showed to some like jury at a court divorce trial where it's like, look at this episode, Your Honor, because there are so many. I do wonder. And Amanda says at the end of like, I couldn't do what Lindsay did. I couldn't do what Carl did. Oh, I couldn't do what Carl did in terms of that breakup. And I just wondered if there was a deeper meaning to that of like, have you wanted to? Have you wanted to do that and you didn't?
I think that was very Amanda and Paige being in the funny side, but Amanda being the person in that conversation with the girls was just so interesting because she really was, I think, trying to be supportive for both Lindsay and Carl, trying to kind of like show a bigger picture for the audience, but for Lindsay, maybe kind of open Lindsay's eyes, like, it might not age well if you keep walking around saying like you were blindsided, like we were all there, kind of almost giving her like a heads up. And also just genuinely, I think Amanda is a voice of reason, and it gets lost because her relationship with Kyle is not necessarily like fun to root for all the time. I'm not rooting against them, but like it can get really dark. So I think, she said this season, like, who is Amanda without Kyle? Like, if you do strip it back, like, I think Amanda without Kyle is a good friend who's funny and like pretty insightful.
Oh yeah, I mean, Jesse Solomon would hit that immediately.
Oh my God, that was so crazy. I was texting Sam Bravo Historian. I was like, "What did you do here, girl?" In a
who were you texting?
Sam Bush Bravo Historian, because she
I was like,
yeah, together, and I was like dying. I was like, if this turns out to be true, I have the screenshot. You will get the credit. But I
was just thinking about future seasons and like writing fan fiction into my head. It's like, you have one too many lover boys and then come off a fight with Kyle. Who, like, because Jesse is so heavily flirtatious. Yeah. And even in this last episode, they're all laying in the bed. Amanda's laying next to Jesse. And I'm like, not too close. Kyle, do not let that Jesse Solomon get too close.
Oh, it's so crazy.
So before we wrap up this with going back to Carl and Lindsay, that final conversation with the girls after it happened, what I thought was beautiful was that even if Paige and Sierra and stuff like that seemed to have a certain way of thinking about Lindsay throughout the seasons, they were still able to put that aside, and Paige, and Sierra going like, no matter what, this is still a difficult situation for Lindsay. Like, we can all come together in these moments. I will say the after show and what Sarah was referring to earlier, that Paige says, dude, I don't even think she's really crying. She does that like no tears in the eyes thing. Come on. I know Lindsay. And Sierra's like, yeah, she immediately went in with the Carl's the bad guy. This is the narrative, that kind of stuff. And yeah, like the aftermath of that, like I was like, oh man, I wonder how Lindsay's going to view these comments. But I love that in the moment, they're smart enough to push that aside. And the reality of that situation is, no matter who's at fault, this is insanely sad and difficult for Lindsay.
Yeah, and it sets a great scene for picking up cameras in July. Like, who's watching the after show? Who's going to come in and reference something? It's like kind of when they used to say, when we were in New York, this happened, like on Housewives, and now they can say at the reunion or at BravoCon on the after show. Like, that's another great, to circle back to what we talked about in the beginning, like great thing that they've like made an evolution of. They used to have to like allude.
Yeah, it's a universe. There's a whole universe now that we are aware of.
Right, and I think that'll be also a good jumping off point, because if Lindsay so chooses, she could maybe just kind of brush it aside and take these relationships for what they are, which is not close friends, but co-stars who did have her back at the time, and not take the bait. Do we know Lindsay Hubbard and she might bring it up? Is that her prerogative? Sure. She might not, because it's not always like a fun thing for her to go against Paige. Like it doesn't always end well for either of them, for the viewers. I think that viewers actually prefer seeing them get along, which is also interesting.
I loved it this season. I thought it was like, that was the coolest thing, was that throughout the season, watching the girls come together and talk about what idiots us men are, I was like, hell yeah. Because it was like, I always use like Summer Lovin' from Greece, you had the guys and the girls, and the girls would be talking about really specific instances and things that men do in relationships. And you'd over the guys and to be like, she's a fucking bitch, man.
Yeah.
I can't even take it. It'd be like, yeah, brother, I feel you. You want another lover boy? Like it would be so, and it would be the specificity in which the ladies would talk, and they would all come together. And I was like, I do love this. And this is what Vanderpump Rules. It's too much water under the bridge, where there's too much, where they don't seem to be able to, like the last time maybe they all got together was the Scandival episode at the very end to support Ariana, but they really haven't been able to have those conversations as women. They had one episode where Ariana cried, where they came together kind of, but other than that, not really like this could have been the easiest Vanderpump Rules season ever. I keep saying this could have been the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, where they just got together and it could have been the funniest season ever, of every week bashing these dudes of like, Schwartz, really? Joe, come on. You've slept with Joe. Like this is what's going on. Like it could have been so funny instead of, well, that's the question too, Sarah. Do you think that these producers, they're so used to doing it a certain way that they sometimes are now, instead of growing with the audience, because we are aware of so much, that they sometimes don't give us enough credit for what we would actually find entertaining?
Yeah, probably. I think there was so much pressure going into the season of Vanderpump Rules. It was kind of going to fail no matter what happened, unless we found out that like Ken Todd had an affair with Lala. Like,
I can't believe I slept with Lola in the
yeah,
jacuzzi. I can't
when
believe
Randall
that.
was away. Like, I just like I don't know if there was anything they could have done. I think when they all started self-producing, it is a disaster. It's just not what anyone wants to see unless we're gonna call someone out in real time and be like, okay, you like are doing this for the show, like stop doing this for the show. Like that could have been interesting if Ariana was a little checked out as she could be or should be, but she did show up to everything. I think it's such a weak argument to say you didn't do your job and that affects our job. She went to everything. Like
I'm so confused about that argument
so
too,
confused
because
about
I'm
that
like,
argument.
what do you say? Like she just wasn't entertaining in those moments. Like
Right.
I feel like we got anger, we got tears, we got, like I feel like
She went on
I
the trip.
almost
Like
I almost sometimes feel like, well, are you just sure that it wasn't that and you just wanted a more weak female that would actually beg and cry and scream and, like it, I get confused about that argument then because I'm saying, did you want a different type of female in that role?
I think so because she did. If you look back, like there was nothing where Ariana just like wasn't there. Like I don't understand that argument, and I think it could have been compelling if she in the moment like turned to one of them and was like when they showed that unseen footage in the pool or like the longer extended version. I don't remember
Yeah.
what I was watching. A secret's revealed.
I think it was extended. Yeah, the extended
whatever.
third. Yeah.
But there's a scene that they're in the pool and it's when Sheena's kind of begging Ariana to talk to Tom. And then there was an extended version showed at some point. And in the extended version, Ariana flat out says, I'm not doing, like Sheena says, I want you to do it for me. And Ariana goes, well, I'm not going to do that for you. And I think for me also means for the show. And that should have been in the initial cut. That's interesting to me. That's Ariana kind of having a moment where she did kind of break and was like, you're trying to make me do something for the show, like for you. Like, I'm not doing that.
I would have loved that.
Would have loved it. I think that's interesting. I think if you're going to lean into this being a show about a show, you got to go 100% in. They kind of like dipped in. Again, I don't think that's great for longevity. But I also don't think for Vanderpump Rules, I feel like everyone's talking about what's going to happen. I feel like as Bravo fans, I do this too. Like we make these declarations, like they could never film with the same cast. Yeah. Someone's got to go. And it's like, New Jersey literally still has Teresa and Melissa and doesn't know what to do. Like, I don't think the cast is going to change for Vanderpump Rules. I really don't. I think they're going to give Ariana the summer to go back to Chicago to do Love Island. And I think they're going to pick up cameras in the fall and they're going to add more players. I think they're going to try to get something about her employees involved. I think they're going to see whoever the Toms are dating at the time, try to get them involved. Lala with the new baby. It'll probably be a show that takes a little bit to build up to get them all in the same room. But we know with this group, time heals all wounds. I think they're going to keep it the same and just add realistic players and let them live. I don't think there's going to be some big shakeup.
1,000%. Unless the one caveat I think is if Ariana says, you know what, I actually don't need, like, no offense to the show, but I think at this point the opportunities are coming in. I don't at this point need that. Yeah. That's the only caveat I think to. And that would be interesting if that happened, because then I would wonder about Katie's place. I would wonder how you would, because you think then you start thinking as a producer, or, like story editor, where you're like, well, then how do we get Katie involved in the action? Because at this point, 11 seasons in, we've now dropped, or we're starting to realize these aren't friends anymore. These are coworkers that have been through this reality show war together. So there is a pseudo respect, maybe not for Tom Sandoval with some of them, but you're trying to say, how can we, because we can't say really these guys are best friends anymore, because that's just not the reality. And if Ariana then went and said, I still trust Lala and I would tell her anything, you would be like, are you insane? Right. Like, we wouldn't do that in real life. I would never share a piece of information with Lala ever again, because I would secretly know deep down she hates me.
But aren't all of the Bravo offshoot shows like this at this point? Like on Summer House, some of them are good friends, some of them don't. Yeah. Like Paige has very much said, like, exactly, Lindsay's a coworker. Southern Charm, even like Austin and Craig are actually maybe have some real depth to that friendship. The rest of them are kind of just coworkers too. And Housewives also, like, is it at its best when those relationships get real and people feel a deep betrayal? Yes, but there is some sort of, we're putting these people in a room to see what happens. It's not organic. And that's okay. Like, I know Vanderpump Rules started as the most organic one. Yeah. Just whatever is up there probably. But things change. Like, I think as an audience, we just need to let it go. And I think as the show, they need to let it go and make it don't push it on us that these people would necessarily be in the same.
Yeah. Like, I don't want to hear Schwartz going, I love you guys. We got to get the gang back together. At this point, it's like a legitimately bad gang where you like kill each other in drive-bys. It's not a good gang, story. Yeah, it's like, well, which would be also great storyline if you think about it. Schwartz and Sandy's versus Something About Her, drive-bys, really crazy. I'm just joking, you guys, but you're right. You just made this brilliant point too about Southern Charm is that, Craig and Austin, there is this real depth of friendship, but then also you also have this Craig Shep relationship, which they're buddies, but you can tell there is this deep resentment that Shep has for Craig and that Craig hates that he got bullied by Shep at a certain point. And I will say, even in that negativity, that is a relationship in itself.
Yeah.
So we are not just watching for friendships, but we're watching for people that genuinely dislike each other and are trying to be nice. And I think the audience is at that point too, is a lot of people will write like, I'm done with Vanderpump Rules. We'll never watch again. And I'm like, first off, yes, you will. Yeah. Second off, that's the whole point of these shows, to make you feel something. Hate or anger is a feeling. And I do, I'm realizing, hey guys, they're not trying to make us happy. They're trying to make us upset and get us talking and get us, discussing these things.
Yeah. Katie also had a moment on that they showed, I think in the Secrets Revealed episode, that was like when they were playing that murder mystery party, and she was like, yeah, I like murder, which they didn't even show on the show at all. They were just like dressed in outfits for no reason, which I thought was funny. And like Sheena and Brock trying to act was hilarious. So something I wish they kept in as well. But she said something like, yeah, I like a murder mystery, not with my ex-husband, this person that I hate, this person I'm not talking to. Like, keep that in, like, just show it. Like, yes, like we are on this trip because of this show, and this is how I'm acting for being put here. Like, just let it go. It's okay. Like, just show me what you would really do.
Yeah, exactly. Well, in the Secrets Revealed episode, you guys, you might not realize, but it's on Peacock. I think it's exclusively on Peacock. I don't think it's going to be on Bravo, but I will say, for being exhausted after the third part of the reunion, might be one of my favorite episodes of the season. Every scene that they cut out was hysterical. It added some kind of information, and I was shocked. I was like, damn. That's why it's like, you guys, the producers of the show, you have to realize at a certain point, you can just put cameras on them anywhere. And at this point, we're so invested in who they are that you can, unless you're just completely bullshitting the audience, there's something in there. That scene with Sandoval and Schwartz at the end when they're at the restaurant and he's hitting on the girl and he goes up and gets her like Instagram handle, I think was so hysterical, where he's like, and then Schwartz is like, how many girls have you slept with since Rachel? And he's like, do you want me to be honest? I don't know if I should. Well, okay, three. Yeah. And then Schwartz is like, I'm very proud of you, man, for getting back out there. Like, that's really beautiful. Like, that must have been so hard being sober and having sex. And I was like, this is amazing.
Yeah, that's a lot. There's so many follow-up questions to ask about that on a Watch What Happens Live, at a reunion, at whatever. So it's interesting what they pick and choose. Reality TV is changing, but at the end of the day, you mentioned, being a storyboard producer, being the person trying to piece these things together. I get it. Like they have a formula they follow that has worked for a long time. So I understand why they're not just throwing it away. And maybe we're wrong and it would fail if they did, but I just think there's still so much with these people that does come out organically when you put them in not unorganic situations, because none of these are really organic anymore. That works. So I'm okay with Vanderpump Rules taking a break. I think the Valley does fill that gap a little bit. I'm anxious for them to get those cameras rolling. I think those are just some of the messiest people that they found to put together. I'm happy that Alex Baskin said that they're not taking Lala and Sheena and putting them on there. I don't think we need that. I think they would,
he kind of said there will be crossover as there was. And I think that's great. Crossover is perfect. But I think Lala has a very specific way of behaving on Vanderpump Rules.
They're too dominant.
Yeah. And I also would think that at this point, and Alex Baskin produces this as well, I really would love for Lala to get a shot on Beverly Hills. I feel like sometimes she acts like a Beverly Hills housewife, and this is not a knock on Lala at all. In fact, I just think her style, if you want to call it a style, is more akin to that. But if she came on the Valley, how she came at that reunion, to me, it would mess up this natural flow of, you got Jax and Dodie who are like OGs, but you have all of these other people that it's their first time on reality television in a lot of ways. And I love that they can't help but be honest. So it's a more fascinating and enjoyable viewing experience for me.
Oh, 100%. I think it was the perfect mix of they've been around these people before. Zach, Janet, they were their friends naturally, and they've watched crazy things happen on Vanderpump. They know the game a little bit, but they clearly had no idea what they were getting into, and it's incredible to watch. And I really hope that I think Janet has been fascinating. I know a lot of people are coming for her. I think two things can be true. I think watching the conflict of Janet and Kristen doesn't mean you have to be team Janet or team Kristen.
Yeah.
You can be team, get them in the room together. This is
I'm also like, show me more. Show me more.
Me too. Like, I don't feel I don't really necessarily want to be best friends with anyone on the Valley, but I want them to all be themselves. And I'm not here. I enjoy Janet as a reality TV person as I'm watching her, the same way I've enjoyed Kristen for all these years. And I think seeing Janet not pregnant, I think seeing Janet watching all of this, I just really hope she doesn't, as they keep saying on Vanderpump, live in the comment section, because I know she's getting a lot of backlash. I hope she goes into her second season still strong in her convictions, because that's good TV. And like, people saying they don't want that are lying. Like, just stop.
Yeah. Well, listen, I mean, that's, this interview that I'm not going to probably be able to air with Janet, she does talk about living in that comment section, because remember, she, BFFs with Sheena at a point, friends with Lala, all of these things. She said she did have to eventually mute everything and like stop reading because it was affecting her. And that's an interesting thing of like, it's going to be interesting to see how audiences perceive anybody. Like if we went on a reality show, all of a sudden we might realize, wait a sec, I'm a villain. I had no clue I was a villain. Like people all like that's, I mean, it's like I said, at the end of the day, they get paid for this, but at the end of the day, it also has got to be very difficult in realizing with a mass audience how they perceive you. And if it's not great.
Yeah, it cannot be fun, but you also are getting a paycheck, and like you have to have thick skin, and it's 2024. If you're going on a reality show and you think you're going to be a hero, you're probably delusional. Like maybe I do want you on the show because that sounds like a great show to watch, but like, I don't know. It's a risk you're taking. People cross lines all the time. I'm not condoning that ever. They ruin it for the people like us who can like have a conversation about it. Cause like, I would never go DM someone this, like whatever. But I think that the Valley is just going to be an interesting social experiment in this, because it's a mix of people that have been on the show before. So much has happened, so much audience. There's been a lot of people watching the show. Because they're not doing the reunion, we're just going to jump right back in. My own theory about not doing a reunion is that the show feels like it would cause this. I know this is not from anyone at all associated with the show. This is literally just my guess, because it doesn't make sense. It feels like a no-brainer. I think they think that at a reunion, they would do more damage than good, because they would all just rip each other apart. And there's so much probably happening. And they're probably, it's seemingly they're going to agree to all film, come sign on. Why would they jeopardize that with Jax saying something so stupid that Brittany walks out and won't be in the room with him? Kristen and Janet just going at it. Like, I don't think they can risk unleashing this group together in a thing.
Well, yeah, it's like I don't even think the group realizes how much power they have right now, not in terms of, but also just in terms of like when they get together, it's their first one, they might go too hard in the paint. They might like say something that they can't take back before they pick back up cameras, and that could actually, like, even if they think there should be a reunion, which I know some of them do, and I would love to see it, I also want to make sure we have a great season 2, because I think it's at this really peak moment where they've kept so much of the Vanderpump Rules audience, and a lot of new shows don't do that, where this could be a not a groundbreaking, but like a really big season where it explodes in popularity.
Yeah.
If they get the right stuff, because Michelle and Jesse Lally no longer together with new people. You have whatever is going on with the Jax and Brittany, which seems like every week something new gets added to it. And I can't wait and I really am curious where we land with Dodie and Janet. And this is the finale this Tuesday, you guys. And I'm like, I need 3 or 4 more episodes, because there's no way I'm going to be satisfied with whatever they do in that hour, because we have to handle Jax and Brittany, them separating, whatever happens between Janet and Dodie. We see that Janet's husband gets into a fight with Zach Wickham. There's too much for an hour.
Yeah, I agree. I think sure it'll be one of those extended little episodes, but I think that it's just, if Vanderpump's not on, especially, it'll have an audience. I think they just need to turn it around quick. I know that Bravo follows a schedule, but there have been exceptions, I feel like, where they've turned some seasons around quicker. And I think
they're turning Beverly Hills around quicker than they usually do.
I think so too.
My understanding.
Too. And I hope they do the same for this, because I think the audience wants it. I think there's so many things at play. All the things you mentioned. I think it's a totally like changing situation. And I think seeing some like Lala, Sheena, whoever pop up organically will be great. So I feel good about it. I think, it wasn't a perfect season of Vanderpump Rules by any means, but I think it did what it needed to do.
Like you said earlier, there's no way it could have. You said that earlier. There's no way it could have been a perfect season. They just needed to get through this, and they did. And it's really, what it actually exposed, though, was a show that they were all equal. I think, what article was this? Was it a Glamour magazine article by Stephanie McNeil? She made this, I think it was, she made this point saying that these people were all on the same level. Like they were all stars or reality stars. And then all of a sudden, when somebody explodes like Ariana, it also just kind of upsets the power balance, because you go from everybody having their favorite Beatle to somebody just being elevated. And Lala makes us so obvious we're watching a reality show by saying those fourth wall breaking comments of she's Beyonce, all of a sudden she became God. How does the rest of that cast, come back to a stasis level where they get, where they don't treat because Ariana's not even doing anything.
No,
they're just reacting off her popularity. She's not saying or doing anything weird or different. It's just their reaction. And I would love to talk to Ariana someday about that's got to be the weirdest feeling, is to just still be you with better opportunities, and you're doing and saying the same things, but everybody around you is treating you so differently. Their behavior is the one that's suspect.
Yeah, I think the only thing is time. I really think time makes a lot of sense. I think you let everyone kind of fall back in. Lala will be obviously very focused with having her second child. Ariana will go on and do.
Oh, she's pregnant?
Yeah.
I'm
She missed it on Amazon Live. Yeah, I think that it just is time, and giving them have a little bit of life to live before we capture it. I think that's all it is. And I think that it's going to be fine. It's all going to be okay.
Yeah,
everyone.
guys, it's one of those things. I do trust the process. I think in terms of viewing experiences, there's always something to watch, I'm sure. Yeah. But I'm oh, damn, it's not going to be on the same schedule, but I'm good with taking a break. I just hope that we talked earlier about, I hope they chill on their podcast, because I want them to truly take a break from even talking about Vanderpump Rules. We can do it. We're safe. But maybe I don't want information to keep coming out where it ruins whatever is potential. I want them to truly have this summer where they can have a bitchin' summer, where you come back, you got different clothes and a hairstyle, and oh wow, what are you up to? I want to see that. And I don't know if that's possible anymore. Also, the last thing about Vanderpump Rules, something about her, of course, opened a week and a half ago. Great success. But it is interesting. I was just reading an article from Chef Penny, who was initially involved in something about her. And this was in the US Sun, where she says, well, they've changed so many. These aren't the recipes that I made, and I would never do a Greek goddess on a lavash bread. It's going to make it too, kind of ripping certain things and kind of saying, I'm the one that introduced them to Boursin cheese. And I just thought, wow, we're really getting in the weeds here. Did you have any thoughts on something about her opening or anything like that?
Yeah, I'm happy for them. I mean, I think anyone who was critical about the long line and it not being a perfect opening has never watched Vanderpump Rules before. This is exactly what would happen. You showed up to this sandwich place on opening day. Get a grip. If you thought it was going to be you walk in.
I felt bad for that. Well, I don't know if I felt bad for that one podcaster, or I don't know if she was doing it for clicks or not, but the one that made that I can't believe I waited and I didn't. And it's yo, that is a wild, if you go on a first, I didn't go on a first day. I didn't go, I was unfortunately out of town for the friends and family, and I wasn't going to wait. I knew it was going to be crazy, but that's part of it. That's the popularity of these shows, which we should be thankful that they're this popular, but you can choose to walk away at any point. You do not have to stay in line. This is not voting.
Yeah, it was stay in line. It was reminding me of for anyone who was at BravoCon, remember when Ariana and Katie did that Lay's?
Oh, the activation for Lay's chips?
The Lay's chips. There was so many people crowded around that section of that Bravo Bazaar. And I was wow, I mean, I know Ariana's the moment, but this, you're all waiting here for to watch her eat a chip. This is crazy. So I'm happy for them. I'm happy that it opened. Chef Penny, that's hilarious. Put her on an episode. Let's make them sit down with Chef Penny.
Well,
sounds there's plenty to story.
Well, yeah, because also Lisa is the one that introduced them to Chef Penny. I would love a conversation between Lisa and Katie and Ariana of what did you do to us? This lady is now trying to sue us. And this did not go the way we thought it would go. So I think there's a lot of play. Do you think they'll bring Joe or Ann back?
I don't think they'll bring Joe back. I think the audience, everyone overall, and I know Schwartz has said some weird things too. I don't even know the whole back and forth of what they've each claimed about each other at this point. But I think overall the vibe from the audience at that reunion was it was just felt mean. Joe is not equipped for this. It didn't land. Schwartz, who has given us plenty of reasons to not be likable over the years, for the first time actually felt unlikable, even though, again, he's given us plenty of reasons not to. It's always kind of been that golden retriever. We forgive Schwartzy. That's why poor Katie, whatever, never has gotten a villain edit because Schwartz comes off so likable. That was the first time I feel everyone was oh, this is not good. So I don't think they'll bring Schwartz back. I think Anne will make some cameos if she's really working at something about her. She's doing she just did some brand deal. I can't remember. She was doing press.
She She did the battery thing.
Yes.
She did like and then I mean, so
I do know legally, I don't think she can say too much about working with Sandoval. I think there might be some legal stuff going on there.
Well,
But
and that's the one place where I actually will agree with Sandoval that it is kind of a wild storyline when you do work with somebody for 3 years, where I'm like, I don't know if this is the best. It is a little dicey, I would imagine, because she does know from a business standpoint just so much about his life, and I'm sure she is smart enough, I think, to hopefully, I mean, she hasn't blasted him too much with specificity, which I'm sure she could have.
I mean, she has a podcast called We Signed an NDA. So
yeah, I mean, right there, she's aware. She's aware.
Getting into it, but hopefully not crossing any lines. But yes, I think she would make a cameo if it made sense. I don't think they're ruling anything out.
How much longer do you have?
A few minutes.
Okay, cool. We didn't get to like so many things. Let's, I guess, end with J-Lo and Ben Affleck. A non-Bravo story is that J-Lo made an announcement on Friday that she was canceling her tour. She said, I am completely heartsick and devastated about letting you down. Please know that I wouldn't do this if I didn't feel that it was absolutely necessary. I promise I will make it up to you and we will all be together again. I love you all so much. Until next time. And we then had photographs of Ben Affleck and J-Lo both wearing their wedding rings together this weekend. What are you hearing on your end about any of this?
Oh man. I mean, first of all, when I got the email from On the J-Lo, I forgot I subscribed. It had
you guys, you can subscribe to J-Lo's website. I'm subscribed. Of course. And she sent out an email blast.
Right. And I forgot. I was like, On the J-Lo, it's been a minute. So like I forgot about it. I feel like Atlas didn't get any love on the J-Lo with all the press she was doing. So I was like, oh God, what is this? What is this now? I thought maybe it was a divorce announcement, honestly, because that's what she announced at the wedding. And it's just been so interesting how like the rebrand of J-Lo as a musician and like On the J-Lo and so many things have been tied to Ben Affleck and the way she's kind of the whole album coming out. This is me then, this is me now. Like it's all like 20 years in the making. Like so much of her professional life has this past year been wrapped up in this Benifer 2.0 love story. And Ben Affleck is the opposite of that. He doesn't have a public Instagram. He gets papped all the time looking miserable. He doesn't like, it was very funny to see him put his sweater over his shirt that one day, like, and turn it, like try to like have fun with it. Smile. He hates being famous. Like he is not good at being famous. And she has made a whole rebrand on Benifer 2.0. So like, it's not a surprise that these two are having issues. The fact that they are very opposite humans. We are hearing that it's not over completely. I think part of that is because there's some embarrassment on both ends. They don't want to give up. I think the media attention is going to make it worse the same way it did the last time. But the root of the issues is how different they are, and how much they both work and putting when to prioritize what. So I feel like the tour being canceled probably was for a lot of reasons. I mean, everyone knows the jokes about the ticket sales, but I also think her going on a 4-month-long tour wouldn't give it all a chance. So I do think it's like a not filing for divorce tomorrow situation, going to try to figure some of it out. And she can't do that from wherever she is.
I mean, that's it. I was like, okay, so if it's not divorce, if they're still together yet, maybe it's you need to spend time at home with us and the family and like see where we're at instead of like, going on the road would be the worst possible thing. Cause that's what I truly thought it was. I thought it was a divorce announcement because she said my friends, my family, my children. And I was like, she didn't say my husband, but then I was like, oh, that could be family. But then we saw them photographed together. So I'm very curious, but it is interesting. Like, after like the initial excitement wears off and the love story, like get these people on Summer House. Like we're dealing a Summer House without the cameras. So we're speculating like a reality show. But it is, I mean, I'm just like, oh shit, this is going to happen again, isn't? They're going to eventually break up again.
I'd be shocked if they didn't.
Yeah. I mean, Vegas odds says
as a human and as a journalist, like I'd be surprised, but at the same time, like, did I see them getting back together happening? No. So we don't really know. I think it's fascinating the fact that they've taken the rings on and off so many times. Like they know what they're doing, but also, like maybe, I don't know. I think they don't even have the answers. So to try to give us the answers is not possible. Cause I think it's a Jax and Brittany. It's a fluid situation. I don't think
also Ben doesn't give an F about us. J-Lo has made a career trying to court us and it's not going well for her this year. But Ben, at the end of the day, I think, and I'm not sticking up for him, wants some sort of reality in his life. And like that documentary, if you watch it, was like ridiculous of like her letting like his love letters be out there in the room for like producers to like be inspired to write songs about. That's insane.
insane. They're so different. It's like, it's so cliche, but like, it just, I remember when they got back together, I was like, I know everything about J-Lo from Instagram. Like, and even her kids, like it goes down to the kids, like J-Lo's kids have been on stage with her. They're on her Instagram. They, perform with her. Like it's so different. And the Affleck kids, like, unless you seek it out, which if you're reading, certain tabloids still do publish photos of kids, UsWeekly's not one of them, yada, yada. You have to seek out content about those kids. Like they're not giving it to us. And I'm not saying there's a right or wrong. They just do it differently. So even then I was like, this is going to be weird that when they announce they get married, like, that Jen's kids were there because they're mentioned and they're in the photos, but like, were Ben's kids not there because they knew it was going to be on the J-Lo, or are they like not invest? And then it creates.
Please don't mention me, Mom. Please don't mention me in your email newsletter this week, please.
And it opens up this conversation that me having about a 15-year-old, I probably shouldn't be, but like you're giving me the bait because you're doing it. Like it's just a weird thing. So I thought, I don't know. It's sad. It's fascinating. It's weird. It's kind of wild that every other day they have the rings on or off. Like.
And by the way, it's great pop culture. It's great Hollywood. This is our Elizabeth Taylor. It's a really fascinating story in this day and age because the news cycle is so 24/7 and Us Weekly is at the forefront of all of that. And finally, I know that we did, but just real quick, I don't want to be, Real Housewives of New Jersey, not having a reunion. They confirmed it. And I'm fine with it, even though I think we've had reunions for bad seasons of all these shows before. Right. But they said they will have a traditional reunion. It's been confirmed, I think, by People Magazine. Mm-hmm. And at this point, though, it's like a Sandoval Ariana situation with Teresa and Melissa. If you aren't going to have scenes together, and it seems like they're not, then is there a point in doing a reunion and kicking up dust all of a sudden in the same room? Any thoughts on this before we go?
Yeah, I think we might be jumping the gun a little bit, assuming it's Teresa and Melissa. I think based on that cold open of the season, we know there's going to be that big fight at Rails Steakhouse. Shout out.
Poor Rails.
I know, right? We actually had someone go to Rails that works for us that actually was going there organically and like asked like a waiter, like, just like, hey, like, do you like it when they come in? And the waiter like said, yeah, sure. Like they're not kicked out. And I'm like, did they say that? Cause they know this was like a press person, but it was just funny because we weren't gonna like lie and pretend we weren't, but they were very nice at Rails. Anyway, I think that it runs deeper. I think a lot of it is like the Jen Aiden weird leaks to the media. I think they've
the social media. I said, have the reunion on Twitter because that seems to be where all the drama is with all these fan accounts.
Yeah, and I interviewed Rachel Fuda not too long ago, and she kept saying things like that too. Like it's all playing out on social media. This whole season was contrived. Like they planned it. Like they're very bitter on their side. Her and Jen Fessler have not talked in months. Like. I think it's more than just Teresa and Melissa. I think allowing that to be a thing maybe causes a storm too. Cause it's like, well, if they don't have to talk about their issues, do I? I think though, it's really like, they just need to, it sounds bad, but like rein them in. Like you can't have Jen, Aiden, and like, I don't know what's true, whatever, like them totally leaking things all the time. Like it's too much about the show. It's gotten to a meta where it's not even Vanderpump Rules meta. It's like,
and it's also really sad because we're like, oh my God, you're reaching out to like small fan accounts. Like I love fan accounts. I'm a fan account, but at the same time, I don't want to be like nobody. And I do try to
storyline.
And I will say this, like for talking to a lot of the Jersey people, nobody's been in my DMs going, hey, could you plant a story or could you make a meme or could you I've never been approached like that. So it is weird when these conversations seem to happen with these smaller accounts to press stuff out. And I'm like, what is going on? Like you're supposed to be a pseudo celebrity. You do not need to be doing these things. Just live your life.
Just live your life. I mean, they are such an interesting group of people. So it is a shame because it feels like it would be good magic for a good show. I just think they've lost the plot a little bit and they're trying to take back the plot by maybe taking away the reunion. We know they usually get paid for the reunion. We know the reunion usually tries to set up for what's next. I don't think they know what's next. I don't think Bravo knows what to do with New Jersey. And I think maybe they'll do some like couple interviews with Andy Cohen put together for like a special, not like a send off. I don't think they're going to totally like revamp New Jersey. I know some people think that because of like New York. I don't know. I think they have some tough decisions to make. I don't envy the person who's making them because I think there's pros and cons to both. I don't think Teresa and Melissa can be on the same show anymore because it creates a divide amongst the cast that they cannot move forward with, even if it's not the focus, it's the underlying focus. But I do think whatever happens at Rails is probably a bigger deal. And the social media stuff, it's not just Teresa and Melissa can't be in the same room like BravoCon style. I think
it's everything. It's So I'm curious to see what they do with that.
Though.
Yeah. Sarah, you can find out everything Sarah Hearon. Follow her on Instagram. We'll post all of that information. But Us Weekly, sign up for updates. It is truly one of those things that I love getting Us Weekly updates. So go follow them, sign up for the updates. Anything exciting you're covering this week?
Oh man, I don't know. We're in June, so summer is always interesting. So we're on high alert. Obviously, we're
Summer
following
should be fun. Summer should be
Summer
fun.
should be fun. We're following Benifer's every move. Everything we talked about with the reunions. I'm excited. That TikTok documentary on Netflix.
Oh,
The
the
7M.
7M.
It's 10 out
You
of
know,
10 recommend.
well, see, it's so interesting. I love the first episode, and then for me, it kind of fell off in those last two. But I love, like, go check it out, you guys. That is something interesting. But I almost wish we had like an end to the story, because I feel like there's so much more story about where it could go that I was kind of left wanting more, which probably is a good thing. We didn't get to half the things, you guys, today, which just says Sarah should come back way more frequently. So, Sarah, thank you so much for doing this for me. I really appreciate it. And you guys have a great rest of your week, and we will talk to you on Tuesday. Bye.